Hello, this is Sarah Ainsley Desart, and I'm here to talk about Bloom's metamorphosis. First off, I want to talk about my SAMR rating and my Bloom's digital taxonomy rating. When I look at the Bloom's digital taxonomy, I can see that I do use blogging. You'll see in later on in this presentation that my students have posted to a rainforest blog. My students have made videos and Flipgrids. They have podcasted with Screencastify and other voice recording tools. They haven't used directing yet. Um, During video, there's a little bit of directing, so I guess that counts. For grading, I use all sorts of things, Google quizzes, Kahoot, quizzes.com, so different things for grading. And students also use rubrics online, like Orange Slice, for grading. My students do post in things like Padlet and Wakelet, and they do moderate. They create books in Book Creator, and there's a voice app that they can add moderation. And Google Slides now has the voice recording, so they can add voice recording to their Google Slides. Testing. I wasn't sure if this was from the teacher standpoint. Yes, I use technology to test. My students haven't used it to test their own theories and things like that. Mind mapping. I use mind mapping. Um, it's called Make a Map from Brain Pop, and also Poplet is another mind mapping. And I love mind maps. I really think that reaches a higher level. Surveying, no, but I really wish I could get our county surveyor in here. We've actually talked about having him come in here because I'm a world geography class, and latitude and longitude and those type of things are really important. So that would be amazing if we could get him in. Linking, my students definitely know how to link things. And calculating, they use calculating for different things. They for scale and currency conversion and other things like that. Charting, they've used Google Sheets and Pictochart for charting. They're often editing with comments on each other's paper, and it's called peer grade, and also using the suggestion mode on Google Docs. Uploading, they have uploaded different items like images and things like that. They do use it for journaling, interactive digital notebooks. I have not got my students into Twitter, even though I love Twitter. That's one thing I haven't had my students do. So I think it's something I should strive for. They definitely know how to tag. We use a thing called Thinglink. So they have to tag different parts of an image and add tags there. They do subscribe to different programs, like you'll see the different ones they've used. They bookmark. We all make sure our Google Classrooms are bookmarked at the beginning of the year. They know how to copy and paste, highlight, and they used a lot of researching and searching skills in my class. As cited in Sneed, Bloom's digital taxonomy helps us navigate through the Madrid of digital tools and make choices based on the kind of learning experiences we want students to engage in. So it is nice to look at that Bloom's digital taxonomy and see what tools I'm using and how they're correlating to Bloom's taxonomy and what skills they're getting from those different tools. Are they just using all remembering tools, or is there a variety being used? And I hope I am using a variety in my class. With the SAMR model, um, I I think I'm a swimmer. And the reason I say this is I will spend some of the year in substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition, but I'll make a lot of laps. Usually at the beginning of the year, we start with substitution, and because my students don't get a lot of technology at the previous school they come from. So there's a big learning gap. And then as we start to go, I've got some projects that hit redefinition and then some things we do modification, and we kind of go back and forth and make laps. I think if you spend too long in redefinition, you might drown, because it is hard to get your students to that point, and sometimes they're not ready for it at the beginning of the year. As Noah said, there's room for subjectivity. There's not always a single SAM or classification, and one person modification can be another person's redefinition. And that was from the Miller article. And I believe that. So when I go through these activities I do in class, I hope you understand this is my interpretation and that other people could be subjective and say, ooh, that's not quite that. So. For substitution, my original activity is a quiz, but with the ability of Google Forms, I turn it into a Google Forms quiz. So I'd like to show you that one. So states and capitals, basically remembering the location, but it gives them immediate feedback. They automatically know after they've taken it where the where they went wrong or right and can adjust. I know I get immediate feedback. I know if we're learning it correctly. And but it is just substituting a paper quiz for a digital. Another thing for substitution is a research project. So here is the state project research page. Um, so it's substituting with a Google Doc instead of just handwriting, but there are some links embedded into this doc. So if they click on these, it will take them to a website to find the information. So all throughout it, there's places they need to go. They also do have to put in some pictures about the research. So the next level is modification. And in modification, the first activity, the original, is just make a map. I've been making maps for years. So it's nice that I've now been able to make maps digitally. And this program's called Thinglink. And so this is where they have to put tags and then they can insert pictures, articles, websites, videos, their own information about some of the physical landforms of Europe. And then note taking. I love interactive digital notebooks, or some people call them hyperdocs. Um, so this one is about the Middle Ages, and they have to watch a brain pop. And then this one, they've got this Quizlet to go to, find the definitions in an image. And then this is a timeline. Oops, sorry. This is a timeline. So they go here to a website, and then they have to move these boxes over and put the year in order. They get to make a feudal manor and decorate it and match it with the definition after they watch a video. They can create coat of arms. And so each one of these blue words is a website linked in there to watch or read about different knights in the levels. This one is the trade routes. So I have to draw a map of the trade routes and then discuss it. And then the Crusades. So once again, watch videos, come up with key events, decide, evaluate whether it's a success or a failure. Same with the Black Death, lots of evaluation. And then finally, the Roman Church, Catholic Church during medieval society. The next level is augmentation. And augmentation, the original activity would be graphing data. And in this activity, they create an infographic using Pictochart. So here is that. So this one's on an island in the Caribbean. They choose an island and they have to find out how many miles of coastline, and they represent that by palm trees, or they can decide their own image. This particular group chose palm trees and how many people they employ. So they got each person 10,000. So then they had like a half a person. Then they had to graph days with rain, places to visit, another graph. So this is all about graphing, maps, and so that was a fun activity that got them to the applying level. A persuasive essay would be the original activity on this next one, but now I use an interactive learning digital notebook. They peer edit and with suggestion mode and fill out a rubric with orange slice, and then they publish it to a blog, which is pretty awesome that this Rainforest Foundation lets us post our essays to their blog. So here's the original activity. So they have to find out the reasons it's being destroyed by visiting these websites, the animals that are getting destroyed, the effects on the environment. And this next one, and food, well, resources would lack if we lose the rainforest, and then ways to save the rainforest. And they do all this with these links to these articles. And then that gets turned into a Google Doc, and using Orange Slice, which is an add-on, they fill out a rubric. It's like it pops up over here, and then they have to fill out how they feel their partner did, and then they use the suggestion mode of Google Docs to edit. And once they're complete, they get selected to be part of this Rainforest Fund blog that if they get their parents' permission to be published where the entire world can see it, they get to go on. So this is my little class at Adobe Middle School, and here's their rainforest essays to persuade people to save the rainforest. The next category of the SAMR model is redefinition. And in this one, they're evaluating and creating. So, one thing, they evaluate the issues in Africa and they have to come up with solutions to issues in Africa. And I have them use a Flipgrid. And so they make these little voice recordings. And here's just a little bit of one.
Which is political instability as the most important topic because this can help spread awareness to help show people how government.
And they had certain requirements that they had to put into that Flipgrid. The next activity under redefinition that I thought was a state report. They had to create a book where it used to just be a state report. They had to create a book, and then these got shared with elementary students. So they got to see seventh graders' books in the elementary. So this is one of the books the students created for the third grade class. And this is about Wyoming. And they can also add voice to it and pictures, and it turns into a book. So it's a pretty nice program, book creator, that makes them create a book. And the next one under redefinition is I used to have them make a travel brochure, but to get to the redefinition phase, I have them make a website. So we're going to take a look at one of these websites they created. And so here's their homepage. And to make it more authentic, I had them have an actual person they were designing this trip to Europe for. So that person chose where they want to go, how much they want to spend, certain features about it, if they wanted to be more active or things like that. And they had to plan out an itinerary. They had to plan a budget using Google Forms. And so here's their trip budget and travel tips. They had to figure out exchange rates for all the pricing of things, a map of the vacation using Google My Maps. They mapped out where they were going to go in Europe and then the different places within Europe that they would go to. And then there are some other fun pages like holidays and sports and dress. At my school, we use Bright Bites. It's a collection service about technology. And so last fall, my staff and students and parents took this survey about the integration of technology. And so this is what we found, that 74% of them have good foundation in computers. Same with online. Their multimedia skills are lacking. They're only 48% feel comfortable with multimedia. Digital citizenship's only 48, and their beliefs are 90% that technology does help learning. Their overall score, since we became a one-to-one school, is when we started to do the research on this, has steadily increased. So that's exciting news. Um, Let me go to present mode. Sorry. So 45% believe technology can be used to enhance student learning, and then the shaded one was the spring collection. And then more than half, definitely more than half, think they can find good solutions to technology. 42% strongly agree that they want to learn more about effective technology. Teachers reported that um, the students use a computer in the classroom, about 62% of the time on a daily. Um, it's easily to find new technologies to meet their goals. 52 agree, and 32% strongly agree with that. In this one, they collaborate with colleagues to design authentic learning activities that leverages technology. 39%, more than half the time. So that would put them into the modification redefinition if they are doing that. Teachers ask students to receive feedback. And this one's pretty sad that 39% never ask their students to receive feedback from others other than themselves. So that takes them down to the substitution level. Teachers ask students to use the internet to receive information. And the shaded one on this one is the students, what they said they did. So, where teachers are only saying 23% of the time, my students are getting information from the internet, the students are reporting that 42% of them are getting information from the internet. Teachers ask students to write on long, and this is more blogging. It's not just like writing in a Google Doc. It's more getting your information out there through Twitter or through a blog. And 78% and 59% of the students say that they never do this, which is another area that we need to improve on to up our SAMR model. Teachers ask students to collect and analyze data, another area where the students report that they're doing this a lot, but the teachers don't feel like they are. Teachers ask students to create models, stimulations, and animations. Once again, this is another area that our school is lacking on the SAMR model. So we're not pushing to that redefinition level from some of these results from the survey. Teachers ask students to develop multimedia presentation. So this kind of gets us into the augmentation modification level. There's some they're doing it weekly, some monthly, every few months, but 23% of the teachers say they're never doing it. So we've got teachers in various levels on the SAMR model. Teachers ask students to reflect on the learning process, metacognition, and that's pretty even across the board of who has them use metacognition. Teachers ask students to collaborate online with classmates. The students are collaborating a lot. We got 46% say the students say they are collaborating, but only 13% of the teachers say they are collaborating. So once again, our students are actually using more technology than our teachers are acknowledging or understand what they're doing. Teachers ask students to collaborate using online documents, and our students definitely are collaborating, and our teachers just aren't understanding that they are sharing those documents and working together. So, what elements of this week's required studies do I want to incorporate? Well, there's a lot of fun tools on this the blooming taxonomy. So one thing I would like to try out some of these tools that I have never used before. Skype, especially, there's a mystery Skype out there that I've always wanted to try. And there's some other apps I talked about earlier that I'd love to get my students involved in Twitter, but haven't taken that leap. Um, I Some of these I haven't heard of, so I'm excited to go research them and see what they're about. And some of them I have used and need to get back into using them, like Sway. Haven't used it for a while, but it's a good app. There's Sways embedded into some Nearpods that we use. So with the Google Forms, I use tons of Google tools, not Google Forms. I use a ton of them, but I don't use all of them. I just realized when I went through this list, even though I'm a Chromebook one-to-one school. So Blogger, definitely need my students to be blogging more. Hangout chats, I want to do something like a mystery Skype with the Hangout chats. Google Sheets, even though I do use it, it's probably my least familiar one, so I need to get better and get better with my students using it. Photos is one I know my photos are being uploaded to it, but not sure how to use it in the classroom. Expeditions, I really want to build Tour Builder and get into those expeditions, especially being a geography teacher. Google Earth we use a lot, but that new Google Earth creator that just came out in November, I want to have my students start creating in the new Google Earth, the web-based one. Drawings, another tool I have my students use, but it's just one I struggle with. Cardboard, don't have all the cardboards. I do have one, but it once again, it's perfect fit for geography. And Google Keep, I use Google Keep a ton, but I need to have my students using it to record their homework and their to-do list and things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Let me know if you have any questions. Here is my reference list of all the different sources I used from this week's reading. This presentation template came from Slides Carnival and the photographs came from Unsplash. And thank you.